Commander Vexthul stared at the blue holographic display floating above his command console. The tactical readout showed a single dot moving slowly through the Kepler 442 system. His four eyes narrowed as he studied the readings. The vessel was tiny, barely larger than a supply shuttle his own fleet used for routine cargo runs. "Report," he commanded, his voice echoing through the bridge of the massive Hegemony flagship. Tactical Officer Mordan stepped forward, his scaled hands dancing across his control panel. "Single contact, Commander. Human origin based on engine. Signatures. Classification appears to be reconnaissance class. Minimal armament detected. Energy output suggests a crew of no more than 15 beings." Vexthul's mandibles clicked together slowly, a sign of mild amusement among his species. 3 cycles of expansion through this galactic sector had brought the Hegemony into contact with dozens of primitive civilizations. Most fled at the first sight of Hegemony warships. Those foolish enough to resist were quickly crushed and absorbed into the growing empire. Humans were a recent addition to their databases. Intelligence reports described them as a young spacefaring race from a small blue world on the outer rim of their local star cluster. Their technology was primitive by Hegemony standards, their ships slow and clumsy. Most importantly, they possessed no significant military fleet to speak of. "Shall we simply destroy it, Commander?" Mordan asked, his clawed finger hovering over the weapons control. A single plasma burst would vaporize the craft completely. Vexthul considered this option. It would be quick and efficient. The Hegemony had little time to waste on insignificant encounters with primitive scouts. However, protocol existed for good reasons. Proper intelligence gathering required capturing enemy vessels when possible, not simply destroying them. Negative, he decided. Deploy the 7th Battle Group. 3 heavy cruisers, and the destroyer squadron should provide adequate intimidation. "We will demand their surrender first." Mordan's expression showed slight confusion. "Commander, such force seems excessive for a single scout ship. Perhaps a patrol vessel would suffice?" "The Hegemony demonstrates strength through overwhelming superiority," Vexthul replied firmly. "These humans must understand immediately that resistance is futile. Send the battle group forward." The massive Hegemony ships began moving through space with deadly grace. Each heavy cruiser stretched over 2 kilometers in length, bristling with plasma cannons and torpedo tubes. The supporting destroyers were smaller, but equally lethal, designed for rapid strikes against fleeing enemies. Together, they represented enough firepower to reduce a small planet to glowing debris. As the battle group approached the human vessel, Vexthul expected to see the typical response. Most primitive species either attempted to flee at maximum speed or transmitted immediate surrender requests. A few tried to hide among asteroid fields or behind planetary bodies, but none had ever chosen direct confrontation. Instead, the human ship simply continued on its original course. No course changes, no acceleration, no attempt at evasion. If anything, the small craft seemed to be moving slightly toward the approaching Hegemony fleet. "Commander," Mordan reported with growing confusion. "The human vessel is not retreating. In fact, they appear to be transmitting on standard galactic frequencies." "Put it through," Vexthul ordered. The bridge speakers crackled to life with a clear, calm voice speaking perfect galactic standard. "This is Captain Lee of the Human Survey Ship Explorer. You are entering human claim space. Withdraw immediately." Silence filled the bridge. Several officers exchanged glances of pure disbelief. Vexthul felt his mandibles click rapidly, a reflexive response to something so absurd it bordered on comedy. The tiny human craft, which his battle group could destroy with a casual weapons test, was ordering them to withdraw. 12 beings, perhaps 15 at most, facing down enough military power to conquer entire star systems. The sheer audacity was almost impressive in its complete foolishness. "Did they just—" began Navigation Officer Keltar. "They did," Mordan confirmed, checking his readings again. "Commander, they're powering up their weapon systems." This statement caused actual laughter from several bridge crew members. The human ship's weapons registered as barely adequate for meteor defense. Their energy output was pathetic compared to even the smallest Hegemony patrol vessel. Vexthul studied the tactical display more carefully. The human ship designation read HSV Explorer, which his translation software indicated meant human survey. Vessel, a survey ship. They were being threatened by scientists and explorers with equipment designed for studying planets, not fighting wars. Perhaps they are malfunctioning, suggested Communications Officer Velnax. Primitive technology sometimes fails in unexpected ways. They may not realize what they are facing. Open a channel, Vexthul commanded. Let us educate them. The transmission activated, carrying his voice across space to the impossibly small human craft. Human vessel, you are completely outmatched. Surrender immediately and prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will result in your immediate destruction. The T. Response came back almost instantly, still in that same calm, measured tone. Negative. You have been warned to withdraw from human space. This is your final notice. Vexthul looked around his bridge at the expressions of his crew. Confusion, amusement, and growing irritation mixed together. How could such primitive beings be so utterly blind to reality? Morden, he said quietly, what exactly could their weapons do to our shields? Practically nothing, Commander. Their energy output would barely register on our defensive systems, and yet the humans continued to hold position, neither fleeing nor surrendering. Vexthul had encountered stubborn resistance before, but never from such impossibly outmatched opponents. What could they possibly be thinking? Captain Kim watched the alien warships grow larger on her view screen. The lead vessel was enormous, its dark hull bristling with weapon ports that glowed with threatening energy. Behind it came two more giants, each one capable of destroying her small survey ship with a single shot. Smaller destroyer ships flanked, the formation like hunting wolves. Her crew of 12 had never been in combat before. They were scientists, engineers, and explorers who had signed up to study distant worlds and catalogue new species. Now they faced the most powerful military force they had ever seen. "Captain," said Science Officer Park from his station, "I'm reading massive energy signatures from all their ships. Each one has more firepower than our entire home defense fleet." Kim nodded calmly, though her heart was racing. The explorer carried navigation data showing the locations of 17 human colony worlds. If these aliens captured that information, millions of innocent people would be in danger. Retreat was not an option. "All hands, this is the captain," she announced over the ship's communication system. "We are facing overwhelming odds, but we have a job to do. Every person on those colony worlds is counting on us to protect their locations. We will not let them down." Engineer Han looked up from his console. "Captain, our weapons are mining lasers and asteroid deflectors. They were never meant to fight warships." "Then we use what we have," Kim replied. "Weapons Officer Choi, what can you give me?" Choi studied his tactical display. As the ship's cartographer, he knew stellar mechanics better than military tactics, but his mind was already working. "The asteroid field near the fourth planet has some interesting gravitational properties. If we can lure them in there." "Do it," Kim ordered. The explorer suddenly accelerated toward the dense field of spinning rocks and ice chunks. The alien ships followed, confident in their overwhelming advantage. What they did not expect was how the small human vessel moved once it reached the asteroids. Instead of flying around the obstacles, the explorer used them. Kim's pilot, Lee, had spent years navigating dangerous mining fields. He sent the ship diving between massive rocks, using their gravity to slingshot in unexpected directions. The aliens had never seen anything like it. "Firing solution on the lead ship," Choi reported. He had studied the alien vessels during their approach, noting how their shield generators created small gaps during energy cycling. The explorer's mining laser, normally used to cut through solid rock, struck the alien flagship at precisely the right moment. The beam punched through the gap in their shields and carved deep into their hull. Vexthul felt his ship shake under the impossible impact. His tactical officer stared at his readouts, in confusion. "Commander, how did they penetrate our shields? Their weapons are too weak." "Return fire," Vexthul commanded, but the human ship was no longer where it had been. It had used an asteroid's gravity to whip around behind the second cruiser, moving with a speed and precision that defied understanding. The alien gunners fired at empty space, while the explorer struck again. Engineer Han had diverted all power from life support and artificial gravity to the weapons systems. The crew floated weightless at their stations, breathing recycled air, but their weapons burned brighter than ever before. Every shot was carefully aimed at shield gaps and structural weak points that Choi identified with his scientific training. The aliens tried to box in the small human ship, but it moved like a living thing. Pilot Lee seemed to know exactly where each asteroid would be before it got there. He flew the Explorer through impossible gaps, using gravitational forces like a surfer riding waves. "Their coordination is impossible," reported Mordan to his commander. "They move as if they share one mind." He was not entirely wrong. The Explorer's crew had worked together for 3 years, mapping dangerous systems and studying hostile environments. They communicated with brief words and knowing glances, each person anticipating what the others needed. When Engineer Han saw Choi preparing to fire, he automatically boosted power to weapons. When Pilot Lee began an evasive maneuver, Navigator, Yun was already calculating their next position. They moved together like parts of a single organism. The battle lasted only 18 minutes, but it felt like hours to both sides. The first alien cruiser lost main power when the Explorer's laser cut through its primary reactor casing. The second cruiser began venting atmosphere from multiple hull breaches. The destroyer squadron, designed to hunt fleeing enemies, found themselves completely unable to target the wildly maneuvering human ship. "Commander, we must withdraw," Mordan reported as damage alerts filled his console. "2 cruisers are critically damaged, and we cannot achieve targeting lock on the human vessel." Vexthal stared at his tactical display in stunned silence. His overwhelming force was being systematically destroyed by 12 beings in a converted research ship. It was impossible. It went against everything he knew about warfare and physics. The Explorer hung in space among the asteroids, its hull scarred but intact. Captain Kim's voice came across the communication channel one final time, as calm as ever. "This is your final warning. Leave human space immediately." For the first time in his military career, Commander Vexthal gave the order to retreat. As his damaged fleet limped away from the battlefield, one question burned in his mind. If this was what human explorers could do, what would their actual warriors be capable of? The emergency meeting room deep inside Hegemony High Command buzzed with nervous energy. Fleet Admiral Torgash sat at the head of the long metal table, his 4 eyes focused on the holographic display showing the battle footage from Kepler 442. Around him, the finest military analysts in the Empire studied data screens and whispered among themselves. Chief Analyst Colvin stood at the front of the room, his scaled hands shaking slightly as he operated the controls. The battle recording played for the 7th time, showing the impossible encounter between Commander Vexthal's battle group and a single human survey ship. "Play it again," ordered Admiral Torgash. "Focus on the 17-minute mark." The hologram showed the tiny human vessel diving between massive asteroids while 3 hegemony cruisers tried to target it. Every shot missed. The human ship moved, like water flowing around rocks, never where the alien gunners expected it to be. "Their reaction speed is what troubles me most," Colvin explained, pointing at the display. "Watch this sequence. The human ship begins its evasive maneuver before our weapons even finish charging. They somehow knew exactly when we would fire." Military strategist Vental leaned forward in his chair. "Perhaps they have advanced sensors that can detect energy buildups in our weapon systems." "Negative," Colvin replied, calling up technical readouts. "We scanned their ship thoroughly. Their sensor array is primitive compared to ours. What you are seeing is biological reaction time, not technology." The room fell silent. Biological reaction time fast enough to predict weapons fire was beyond anything in hegemony experience. Their own species required several seconds to process complex tactical information and respond appropriately. "Show them the coordination analysis," Admiral Torgash commanded. Colvin switched to a different view that tracked the movements of individual crew members aboard the human ship. Colored lines showed how each person's actions connected to the others, creating a web of perfect timing. "This is impossible," whispered Tactical Officer Morketh. "No species can achieve this level of coordination without direct neural linking. Are they using some form of technological telepathy?" "We detected no such equipment," Colvin answered. This appears to be natural behavior. They somehow think and act as a single unit while maintaining individual consciousness. Admiral Torgash studied the data with growing unease. In his 40 years of military service, he had conquered 17 different species and absorbed their technologies into the hegemony. None had ever displayed capabilities like this. "What do we know about their homeworld?" he asked. Colvin activated a new display showing a blue and green planet orbiting a yellow star. Earth, third planet in their system, classified as a Class 7. "Deathworld by our xenobiology department," several officers gasped. Deathworlds were rare, hostile environments where survival required constant struggle. Most intelligent species evolved on safer worlds with stable climates and abundant resources. "Explain," Torgash ordered. "Earth's surface is 70% covered by liquid water in constant motion," Colvin began. "Weather patterns include violent storms that can destroy entire cities. The planet experiences regular ice ages, massive volcanic eruptions, and asteroid impacts. Most remarkably, the dominant species evolved from persistence hunters." The room grew even quieter. Persistence hunters were among the most dangerous predators in the galaxy, capable of tracking prey across vast distances until their targets collapsed from exhaustion. Humans spent roughly 10 million years as apex predators before developing agriculture, Colvin continued. Even after forming civilizations, they continued constant warfare against their own kind. Our intelligence indicates they fought over 300 major wars in the past 2,000 years alone. Strategist Vental's voice was barely a whisper. "They have been practicing warfare for millions of years." "It gets worse," Colvin said, activating another display. "Human civilization is built entirely around competition and conflict. Their economic systems reward aggression and quick thinking. Their entertainment involves simulated combat. Their educational systems use competitive rankings. Even their mating rituals involve competition between males." The implications were staggering. While most species developed cooperation and peaceful coexistence, humans had evolved in the opposite direction. Every aspect of their society was designed to produce better fighters and tactical thinkers. Admiral, Intelligence Officer Keldar, spoke up from the back of the room. "I have additional information about the specific humans we encountered." Report. The crew of the Explorer were not military personnel. Captain Kim is listed as a xenobiologist specializing in planetary ecosystems. Science Officer Park studies stellar formation patterns. Engineer Han designs mining equipment. Their Weapons Officer Choi is actually a stellar cartographer. The silence in the room was absolute. Finally, Admiral Torgash found his voice. "You are telling me that we fought human scientists?" "Correct, Admiral. The Explorer is a survey vessel designed for peaceful exploration and scientific research. Its crew had no previous combat experience." Strategist Vental stood up from his chair, his face pale. "If their scientists can destroy a hegemony battle group, what can their actual military do?" Colvin activated one final display showing long-range sensor data from human space. "That may be what we are about to discover, Admiral. Our deep space monitors detect massive fleet movements throughout human territory. Hundreds of ships, many times larger than anything we have encountered." Admiral Torgash stared at the readouts, showing the approaching human fleets. Each ship was larger than a hegemony dreadnought, and there were more of them than his entire navy possessed. "What are they doing?" he asked. "Unknown, Admiral. But based on their movement patterns, they appear to be investigating the Kepler 442 incident. They want to know who attacked their survey mission." The Admiral felt cold dread settle in his stomach. They had not just attacked a human ship. They had attacked human explorers on a peaceful mission. And now the humans were coming to find out why. "Send immediate orders to all border fleets," he commanded. "Full retreat from human space. Mark all human territories as forbidden zones." But even as he gave the orders, Torgash knew it might already be too late. Admiral Torgash held the intelligence report in his clawed hands, reading it for the fourth time. The words had not changed, but their meaning grew more terrifying with each review. His aide, Commander Belkar, stood nervously beside his desk, waiting for orders that never came. The report contained detailed information about the human crew that had destroyed 3 hegemony warships. Deep reconnaissance probes, launched weeks after the battle, had finally returned with data about human space and the mysterious explorer vessel. Captain Kim's full record made for disturbing reading. She held advanced degrees in xenobiology and planetary science from something called Earth University. Her specialty was studying how life developed on different worlds. Before joining the Explorer, she had spent 6 years cataloging plant species on frontier worlds that humans had recently discovered. "A botanist," Torgash muttered to himself. "We were defeated by someone who studies flowers." The file on Weapons Officer Choi was even worse. His primary job was creating star maps for human navigation systems. He spent most of his time calculating stellar positions and plotting safe routes between solar systems. His weapons training consisted of a basic 6-week defensive course that all survey crews were required to complete. Engineer Han's record showed similar peaceful pursuits. He designed equipment for mining operations and atmospheric processors. His knowledge of combat systems came from emergency repair manuals, not military training. He had never served aboard a warship or fired a shot in anger before the Kepler 442 encounter. "These were not soldiers," Torgash said aloud. "They were researchers on a peaceful mission." Commander Belkar shifted uncomfortably. "Admiral, there is more information about their vessel." The technical specifications of the Explorer made the situation even more humiliating. The ship had been built as a scientific research platform designed to study gas giant atmospheres and collect samples from asteroid fields. Its original armament consisted of mining lasers for cutting through ice and rock, plus basic defensive systems to deflect small meteors. Only weeks before the encounter, human engineers had quickly installed additional weapons when tensions with unknown alien forces began to rise. The Explorer's combat systems were improvised modifications, not purpose-built military equipment. "They beat us with mining tools," the Admiral whispered. The report included detailed analysis of human space based on long-range sensor sweeps. What the reconnaissance probes had discovered challenged everything the hegemony believed about warfare and civilization. Human space contained dozens of inhabited worlds, connected by regular trade routes and protected by massive orbital defense platforms. But most shocking of all were the human military vessels detected by the probes. "Admiral," Belkar said quietly, "the ship classification data is particularly concerning." Torgash found the section describing human warships. The Explorer, which had devastated a hegemony battle group, was classified as a Class C research vessel. It was among the smallest and weakest ships in the human fleet. Human destroyers were 3 times larger than the Explorer. Their cruisers were larger than hegemony dreadnoughts. Most terrifying of all were vessels designated as human battleships, enormous constructions that dwarfed anything in hegemony space. "How many battleships do they have?" Torgash asked. "Intelligence estimates at least 50, Admiral. Possibly more." The Admiral set down the report and walked to the large viewport in his office. Outside, the hegemony home fleet floated in perfect formation, hundreds of warships representing the most powerful military force the galaxy had ever seen. Until now. "Sir," Belkar's voice carried barely concealed panic, "there is immediate tactical information you need to review." Torgash turned from the viewport. "What now?" "Long-range sensors have detected fleet movements in human space. Multiple task forces are moving toward our border regions." The Admiral felt his blood grow cold. "How many ships?" "Current count is 47 vessels, Admiral, but more keep appearing as they move out of sensor shadow behind their planets." Torgash activated the tactical display on his desk. Red dots marked the approaching human fleets, while blue dots showed hegemony positions. The humans were not advancing in the scattered, uncoordinated manner of most species. Their formations were precise, disciplined, and obviously well-planned. "Ship classifications?" he asked, though he dreaded the answer. "Unknown, Admiral. Our sensors cannot penetrate. Their hull compositions for detailed analysis, but based on energy signatures and physical size." Belkar paused. "They are all larger than anything we fought at Kepler 442. The Admiral studied the display more carefully. The human formations were moving at steady speeds, not rushing toward hegemony space, but advancing with deliberate purpose. This was not a panicked response or mindless aggression. This was professional military action by beings who understood warfare. "What do our tactical analysts believe their intentions are?" Torgash asked. "Investigation, Admiral. They appear to be searching for whoever attacked their survey mission." The implications struck Torgash like a physical blow. The humans were not coming to conquer hegemony space. They were coming to find out who had attacked peaceful explorers and why. They wanted answers. "Send immediate orders to all border commands," he ordered. "Full withdrawal from all systems within 10 light years of human space. Any ship that encounters human vessels is to retreat immediately and report contact." "Admiral, what about diplomatic contact? Perhaps we can explain that the attack was a misunderstanding." Torgash looked at the intelligence report one final time. If human scientists with improvised weapons could destroy experienced hegemony forces, what would happen when they met actual human military units with proper equipment? "No," he said quietly. "We pray they never find us." Outside his viewport, the hegemony fleet began its retreat from the border, hoping to avoid contact with the approaching human investigators who wanted to know why their peaceful explorers had been attacked. The alarm screamed through every hegemony ship at once. Red lights flashed in command centers across a dozen star systems. Emergency messages flooded the communication networks with the same desperate order. "All ships retreat immediately. Avoid human space. Do not engage." Commander Vexthul stared at his screen in disbelief. The proud hegemony fleet, which had crushed 100 weaker species, was running away. His claws clicked nervously against his command chair as he watched his own ships turn and flee. But the humans were already coming. They didn't come like angry warriors seeking revenge. They came like detectives looking for answers. Their ships moved in perfect formations, each one larger than anything the hegemony had ever built. The humans wanted to know one simple thing: who had attacked their peaceful science team and why? Captain Kim stood on the bridge of the human warship, indomitable. The massive ship hummed with quiet power around her. Through the great windows, she could see hundreds of other human vessels stretching in all directions. Each ship bristled with weapons the hegemony had never imagined. She opened a communication channel to the fleeing alien fleet. "Commander Vexthul," she said in a calm, steady voice, "I believe you wanted to see what humans could do in a fight." On his bridge, Vexthul felt his blood turn cold. How did she know his name? How had they found him so quickly? Kim continued speaking. Her voice carried across space to every hegemony ship. "We thought you should know something important. Last time you fought us, you weren't fighting soldiers. You were fighting scientists." The alien commander's eyes went wide. Scientists. The fierce battle that had cost him half his fleet had been against scientists. "The team you attacked was studying alien plants and rocks," Kim explained. "They were cartographers making maps of empty space. They were xenobiologists collecting samples of space dust. They had never been trained for war." Vexthul remembered the desperate fight. The humans had seemed so dangerous, so clever in battle. But they had been civilians? Just researchers with simple tools? "You killed peaceful explorers who were trying to learn about the universe," Kim said. "They fought you with mining equipment and scientific instruments because that's all they had." The hegemony fleet continued its panicked retreat, but Kim's voice followed them through space. "This time is different," she said calmly. "This time, you get to meet our actual military. We thought that was only fair." Behind her, the human war fleet moved forward like a slow ocean of metal and fire. These weren't converted research ships or hastily armed cargo vessels. These were warships built by a species that had been fighting wars since before they reached the stars. Humans had learned to fight on their home planet where everything tried to kill them. They had practiced war against each other for thousands of years. They had turned survival into an art form and violence into a science. The hegemony had made one terrible mistake. They thought all species were like them, either weak civilians or trained warriors, with nothing in between. They didn't understand that humans were different. Every human civilian knew how to fight if they had to. Every human scientist understood tactics. Every human explorer carried the fighting spirit of their warlike ancestors. What the hegemony had faced before was just humans being human. Now they would face humans being soldiers. Commander Vexthul watched his sensors as more human ships appeared. They kept coming and coming, as if the entire human species had decided to go to war. His own mighty fleet looked like toys next to these giants. "All ships, maximum retreat speed," he ordered, with a shaking voice. "Send word to the Hegemony Council. Tell them we have made a terrible mistake." The communication ended, leaving silence in space. The human fleet continued its advance, not hurrying, not angry, just moving forward with the patience of a species that had conquered their own world before reaching for others. Kim looked out at the stars ahead. Somewhere out there, the aliens who had killed her friends were running in fear. She felt no joy in their terror, only a cold determination to make sure it never happened again. The humans had been peaceful explorers once. They had reached into space with open hands and curious minds. But the universe had shown them its teeth, and now humanity would show its own. The war was just beginning, but everyone already knew how it would end. The hegemony had awakened something they didn't understand, a species that had learned to survive by becoming the most dangerous thing. In any room they entered, behind the human fleet, empty space slowly filled with the light of distant suns, peaceful and quiet once again.